Hey everyone, it's me. I am back. Sorry, I kind of disappeared for like pretty much a month. It's not quite been a month as I'm filming this, but you know, it will be. We've seen as you can probably see from my hair, I haven't had the best few months. You know, there's, this joke where you're gonna do some crazy shit to your hair when you're not okay. There's a reason that stereotype exists, right? Just haven't been doing great. So now I've added a colored blue streak for every mental breakdown I've had. Don't worry, I am just kidding. I've had way more mental breakdown. Let's get started. Today's going to be a very chill video, to be honest. I'm just going to be chatting about the books I read recently, while also folding my clothes, because I'm a fairly chaotic person, and I've taken all my belongings that used to be in my 20 square meter studio and shoved them in this suffocatingly small 10 square meter room, which I love, but also half the size of what I used to live in. So, I need to tidy up all the time. Otherwise, I look like I'm living in, leftover rubble from an earthquake, which is really not conducive to a productive environment. So yeah, I'm gonna be folding my clothes and try and stack it like a fucking puzzle in my closet over there. And I'm also going to be talking to you about the books I read recently, so I'm going to be chatting about 4 books, which is not a lot. I started off the year with a really good reading kind of thing. I read like, I don't know, something ridiculous like 9 books in January. And now it's March and I'm just now starting to read my first book of the month, which is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. And I'm really enjoying it so far. I think I'm getting very close to really identifying what I love to read. I think that it is quite difficult to find your identity as a reader when you really think of it. There are so many books that will seem amazing, but then when you actually get to them, you kind of just like, that's really not what I wanted out of a book at all. So yeah, in the sense where, in terms of quantity, February, March hasn't been a good month for me at all, but when it comes to really figuring out what I like and what I want from a book, it's been great. So you know what, let's just get started. So the first book I read is actually a little bit ridiculous, okay? And I gave it to my dad now because he's gonna enjoy it a lot more than I did. And it's The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Now listen, that book is full-on ridiculous. I'm going to tell you the plot of this book, even though the plot is not why people read it. The plot is basically a man named Arthur. He's basically evicted from planet Earth, essentially. Earth is destroyed by another species from the universe, I guess, and one of his friends turns out to be from another planet as well. And he takes a liking to Arthur and decides, you know what, I don't want this guy to die. Let me take him with me as I wander through the universe. And everyone else on Earth is gonna die, but he's gonna be fine, and that's all that matters. So he takes him with him, and we kind of discover the universe through Arthur's eyes, who is just typical middle-aged man from a small town in England. And I understand why so many people like this book, but it's just really not my cup of tea at all. Like, not even a little bit. I tend to really like, this is gonna sound so stupid, I love books that make me think and make me kind of evaluate the way I think and the way I see the world. And I guess you could argue that this book does that to some extent, but it's satire, and a lot of people just read it for the, for the humor in it, for the comedy. I understand, because if you go on Goodreads, that book is fucking drowning in 5-star ratings, and like, I understand, but it's just not my cup of tea. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Am I going to continue on with like the 5 other books? No. The part of me that likes dad jokes liked it, but I would love that kind of writing and that kind of tone, just in a different format. A whole book was just a little bit too much for me, because the jokes are really fucking stupid. It's fun, but not for more than 20 pages. After a while, I was just kind of like, okay, I get it. You take the piss out of pretty much everything, which, I can appreciate, but also, I'm done with you now. So yeah, that was my first book of the month. It was alright. Am I going to continue with it? No, I will not. So the next book that I read was a very different tone. It is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This has literally made it to my favorite books, and it's really not what I was expecting. I've heard so much about this, and I've heard so many people saying, oh my god, I cried so much. I couldn't get through it. It was terrible. All these kind of people telling their experiences of that awfully extreme, extravagant emotions, and I really just expected a trashy binge read that would make me a bit sad. And that's really not what I got at all, and I could not be more delighted. I didn't cry. I very rarely cried in books. The only time I actually cried was for Wuthering Heights. I did manage to force out a tear or two. You know that moment when you're like, oh, I guess I could cry now. Okay, I'm gonna cry. You know, that kind of thing. It wasn't like uncontrollable sobbing or anything. So while this did touch me in a way that I didn't think a novel could, it touched me in a different way than I think it affected most people, because a lot of people just kind of said that they cried a whole lot while reading this, and for me it was very different. It was very much the fact that, you know, I read this over a month ago now, and I still think about the characters every now and then, and it's very rare for me to have this. And I also really enjoyed the writing. This is so off topic. The writing was beautiful, like the prose was fantastic. Yanagihara is very skilled with language, and it's very apparent, not only when you read this, but when you watch her interviews. So I watched a couple of her interviews, and if I could ever be even half as eloquent and well-spoken as she is, I would just be very happy. So I'm not going to go too much into this because I do want to make a full review or discussion, but I don't know quite how I'm going to do it. I think that what you need to take away from this is very much like, if you can, I think you should read it. Does that make sense? Not everyone should read it, definitely. If you're particularly sensitive, if you are someone who is easily triggered, and I don't mean this in a triggered, but like I genuinely, this can and has triggered some people. So you know, look at all the trigger warnings, do your research, and if it's something that you can cope with, I would definitely say you should read it, because there is a lot to be learned from it. But otherwise, maybe give that one a pass. But I hate, yeah, that's the thing, I'm very conflicted, because I hate to say to someone, past this book, because I think everyone should read it, but I know that not everyone will have the same reactions as I have. This is a wild one, it really is, and to be very honest with you, I don't actually understand the criticisms of it. I'm not joking. I don't understand the criticism that I have seen about this book, because listen, I try to be open-minded, I really do, but for me the criticism about this book just isn't valid. A lot of people have said that it is dramatic and over the top and just too much, and it's just, well, that's the point, you know, it doesn't matter. Yeah, this does lean into melodrama occasionally, but to be honest, I really don't care at all. I think that it is important, and I honestly think that this is the beginning of a whole new era of literature almost, and I'm not joking when I say that this is a modern classic. It really is, because when you look at literature today, the vast majority is very shy in the way it is written. This was written to be written and not necessarily to sell. It came from the soul. I really appreciated that, and it read, you know, almost like a fairy tale, in the sense of it's unrealistic, but at the same time you're kind of just, but what if, you know? So I thought it was brilliant, and while it is like flawed in some ways, I don't think that the flaws count to me at all. I actually wrote a full review on Goodreads, and I will make a full video review, as I said, but yeah, I'm still very conflicted on how I want to talk about this book. I know I love it, I know that I want to reread it again, but yeah, I don't quite know what I want to say about it yet. Okay, moving on. I'm gonna go back to folding my clothes now. So the next book I read actually is Germinal by Émile Zola. So I read this partly because I really noticed that I have been neglecting my French reading since I started BookTube, and I'm not joking. I used to read a lot in French, and then I got into BookTube, and I kind of neglected the whole French speaking side of literature, which is so stupid because I love it. So I read this one partly because it's a classic and I'm a book snob, and also partly because I wanted to read more French, and honestly I really liked it. I think I gave it 4 stars, simply because, you know, of its brilliance. It's really not the sort of thing I would usually reach for, but I was so touched by the character developments, everything that goes on. This is, after all, sort of a political tale almost. It's social commentary of the times, and it was so interesting to me that I was able to kind of understand everything that was going on, even though I wasn't alive in those times, and it really shows you that human nature hasn't changed. It's a very sad read, but also very enlightening, and there is just so much to be learned from it, and I haven't even told you what it's about. Wow. Very, very basically, it tells the story of a young man named Etienne. He's looking for a job. He ends up having to work in coal mine where the conditions are disgraceful, and he becomes almost the face of fucking hell, this t-shirt. Anyway, he becomes the face of this kind of minor revolution, and it's very interesting, and it really, the character growth was incredible. I think that Zola was very far ahead of his time when it comes to representation of women in literature. There are a lot of French classics, or just classics in general, where I really didn't like the way women were written. 1984 comes to mind, but I think that Zola did a fantastic job in creating well thought out, fleshed out female characters, and that's something I really appreciated. I think I want to read a lot more of Zola, to be honest. A lot of people say that once you've read one Zola book, you will probably end up reading all the others, and that's true. You know, they're all part of this massive 18-book series that can be read out of order, by the way, before you get scared. They're slightly related, but not totally, you know? What I was going to say is that I have just fallen in love with his style of writing. I think it's beautiful, as, you know, even aesthetically, like the way the words go, the way he is able to use language, and also it was very comforting coming back to reading in French after such a long time of reading in English, even though, to be perfectly honest, reading in English is still my preference. But it was great, and I definitely want to read more of his work, but I'm going to have to wait a bit before I dive right in to the rest of his books, because they do take a lot of effort, to be very honest. So the last book that I read in March, I don't know, February probably. Okay, I think I finished it in March. Anyway, that really doesn't matter. Wait, where is it? Fuck. Battle Royale by Koshin Takami. Oh, look, okay. I wasn't a fan of it, let's just put it that way. It was okay, but it wasn't the best. It had a fairly decent plot, but it became so predictable after a while that I just lost interest very quickly, and it kind of brought on a little bit of a reading slump. And, you know, it's not meant to be this deep novel that will make you think and shit. But to be honest, I think The Hunger Games did it better. And I'm not joking. Like, honestly, side note here, The Hunger Games, like the first book, I thought was so good. Like, I really liked it. And then, like, Catching Fire happened, and then I didn't even read Mockingjay. But, you know, I just... there were so many things that annoyed me. And, you know, when I first started Battle Royale, I was like, shit, this is gonna be at least a 4 stars. The writing is witty and creative, and I really like it, but then eventually I kind of saw some inconsistencies, which I'm not going to count it as a strike against the book. I'm just going to count it as a strike against the translation. But then there were just a lot of just very minor things that pissed me off so much, and it was just getting you know, every time you think the book is going to redeem itself, that it throws something else at you, and I was just like, oh my fucking god. Again, haven't told you what the book is about. It's basically The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games was inspired, I believe, by Battle Royale. A bunch of school kids think they're going on a school trip, but really they're shoved on an island to kill each other. That's the whole thing. So what annoyed me? So one of the things that really pissed me off was the main character. His name was Shuya. Look, listen. Why does every female character in this book have a crush on him? Why? And why is he so stupid? Because I get that, you know, you're a teenager, you're not going to make the smartest decisions, but, you know, he was unrealistically stupid, and then some other characters were unrealistically smart. And I feel like, you know, you guys are 14, you know, you're too old to be acting this dumb, and you're too young to be acting this intelligent. I just thought the characters were so annoying and just not well fleshed out at all, and I get that it's just like a fast-paced read and, you know, fun and all that shit, but to be perfectly honest, yeah, I wasn't a fan. The one reason I gave it 3 stars, which for me I consider it to be quite a good rating actually, is because I try to appreciate it for what it is. Usually I try to rate my books based on my own personal experience. I just dropped things I'm gonna have to fold again. Based on my personal experience reading them and if I like them or not, you know, like I could read a fucking award-winning classic and not like it and then I'll give it a 1 star, you know. This time, you know, my rating would have probably been a 2 star, but that's just because I came from A Little Life and fucking Zola, and I think it was also a bad choice for me to be reading at that time because I just had 2 books that made me think a lot, that made me reflect on a whole bunch of different issues. Oh my god, I don't understand why I keep dropping everything, guys. And then I went straight into this, you know, fun, almost YA-like book, which we all know how I feel about YA. It's not a secret, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but to be honest, there are some YA books that are good, and this would have been one of them, but the thing is, yeah, I read it at the wrong time. I'd say like 60% of the book was really good, like really good, and then 40% of it, I was just like, why? Oh my god, why is this going on? This makes no sense. I didn't like the way a lot of the female characters were written. They were either shy little fucking birds who couldn't speak up for themselves, or they were like psycho killer prostitutes, which I just didn't appreciate. And then the guys were just, you know, all the same. Oh, and there was this one character who used a slur to describe gay people. And listen, I would have understood if it was a character that was seen as a piece of shit, but he was actually seen as one of the most likable characters. And I'm like, if you're supposed to be so likable and so nice and have such a kind soul and open mind, like that's literally his thing. This character was supposed to have the most open mind you can imagine, and then he was describing one of the characters who was gay like revolting fairy or some shit. Wait, where was it? Repulsive fairy. Like, I get using those kind of terms if you're using the voice for a character who's a piece of shit, but if your character that you are describing in that moment, if his voice is saying such kind of ridiculous and hateful shit when his entire shtick is being open-minded, I'm like genuinely confused. I mean, I'm not personally offended because I'm not gay. One of many examples of just a bad choice. I thought it was in poor taste, and I think that if it had a place, it wasn't in the narrative of the most open-minded character in the entire book. I've literally ranted about that for like 5 minutes, so we're gonna move on. So yeah, that is basically it. And now I've chatted a lot of shit about Battle Royale, which it's not bad, you know, like if you do enjoy a good, compelling story, it's really not bad. It's just I found it to be so incredibly predictable, which really pissed me off. And again, a lot of small things like, you know, the girls being either weak or being sluts, or, you know, this one guy being the guy that every fucking girl in the entire story has a crush on. When all these small issues that I have with the book are added onto each other and continue to pile up until the end of the book, I was just like, ugh. And also the ending, like, okay, was kind of creative, but also kind of a cop-out. So, I don't know, I feel like that there could have been ways to make the ending more impactful, shocking, dramatic, whatever. It was satisfying, but it was a cop-out. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna say about it. Alright, so that was it for today's video. I'm so sorry it was so shitty. I actually have tried to, you know, make better content since I came back in November, which I feel like I kind of did. But this really didn't take any preparation. I was kind of chatting and talking to you guys about books as I went along. If I'm not on YouTube, I will be on Instagram, so, you know, sometimes you just won't hear about me for like 2 months, and then I'll post a mile-long story. You can follow me on Twitter as well, where I'm even more absent, or you can just follow me here on YouTube, like subscribe, watch my other book videos. I'll be back soon. I mean, I am back, but I'll be even more back with better videos. Let me know what you guys would like to see next. But anyway, I've spoken for way too fucking long, so we're done now, and I shall see you guys soon. Bye!